Can't be in a better place listening to a better show. This is the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you're expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get to use those personal initiative to go get an energy that moves you to make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together. It's one package. What you get is the mindset, the method, the philosophy, the book, the show, known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic: the rules are not the same for everyone. I don't know who told you. Actually, I do know who told you. We're going to get into that. I don't know why you believed it. Actually, I do know why you believed it. We're going to get into that. I don't know why. I don't know how long you've been thinking this. That one I actually don't know. But today you're going to stop believing it. You're going to stop believing it. You're going to stop thinking it. And if you've been telling it to anybody, you're going to stop telling people that. You're going to start telling them the truth. The truth is, the rules are not the same for everyone in life. Somebody has sent me a message not too long ago, responding to something that I was talking about. I don't remember what the topic was that I was talking about, but this person said something along the lines of, he said that some black person, some African-American person had made a certain statement that involved race. And then he said, well, if a white person had said something like that, they would be labeled a racist. And I didn't respond to what this person was saying, but it made me think of what led to today's topic. So see, this is why I read messages that I get from people or comments and things like that, because even though I'm not going to get into a debate with those individual people, I utilize the things that people say when it seems like they have some ideas that are some warped ideas, or some ideas that may have been taught to them back in the day, or some ideas that they got from who knows where, that they believe the world is a certain way. I can set them straight by creating content like this masterclass you're going to get right here, where I explain to you that even though this person may be correct, what they said may be correct, that there are certain things that a XYZ person could say that an ABC person, if they said the same thing, they wouldn't get away with it. They would not be able to make that comment. It wouldn't be funny if a different person said the same thing. There's certain things that LeBron James could say that Donald Trump could not say. And there's certain things that Donald Trump could say that LeBron James probably wouldn't say. There's certain things that a black person could say that would be funny. That if a white person said it, nobody would laugh. This is just the way that it works. All right? It is 100% true. These things are true. But today's topic is for you to understand that the rules are not the same for everybody. And this is the problem that a whole lot of people have. Maybe you have this problem that you think the rules are the same for everyone. So you think certain things that if you did it, somebody would have a problem with it. But if somebody else did it, nobody would have a problem. Nobody would say anything. Everybody would act like they didn't even see it. And you're wondering why that is. You're pissed off about that. You're annoyed about that. You think things are unfair. I want you to understand something. And what you're going to understand is everything I'm going to give you in the points here today. So let's get right into it, because I don't want to step on any of my points. Today's topic, once again, is the rules are not, N-O-T, they are not the same for everyone. So if you thought they were, change your mind. All right, and if you still have that opinion, or your opinion is wrong. All right, point number one. Point number one. Fairness ended in kindergarten. I don't know if anybody told you at kindergarten graduation, I don't know if they had a ceremony speaker, a commencement speaker at your kindergarten graduation, or even if you remember it, but they should start having kindergarten graduation speakers just so they can tell you one thing. All that fairness and equality, and whatever happens to one person happens to everybody. And if you get something, they have to get it too. And we have to share and split, and everything is 50-50 and equal and down the middle. All that shit is over. All right. You were 5 years old. As soon as you turn 6, it's over. Fairness and equality are over as soon as you get out of kindergarten. From that point on, any of you who's older than that, I think if you're listening to this show, you're probably over the age of 5. All right. Everything is based on a myriad of biases. We make decisions based on biases, some of which you do control and many of which you do not. Other people make decisions based on these biases, and you as well. You have your own biases, you have your own prejudices, you have your own beliefs about life, about people, about certain types of people, about where people come from. Maybe you talk about them, maybe you don't, maybe you're conscious of them, maybe you're not, but you absolutely have them. Every human being has some subjectivity to them. No human being is completely objective, even though everybody thinks they are. Most people are not. Most people will not admit to being prejudiced. Most people do not admit to having some biases about certain types of people or certain genders or religions or races or demographics, but everybody has them. There are a few people, special types of people who would actually admit to having these. Most people don't admit to it, but we all have them. All right, so we're all liars on some level. And we don't control the prejudices, the biases, the beliefs, the opinions, and the backgrounds of the people that we come across in life. What you do control is your presentation, your clothing, your energy, your speaking style, your skill level at your vocation, but you don't control certain things such as, so even though, let me back up here, even though you can have some effect on how people see you and how people feel about you and how people respond to you based on your presentation, because you can change your presentation, right? You can change your body type. You can change what kind of clothes you have on. You can change the car that you drive. You can change whatever else. You can brush your hair. You can put some glasses on. You can put makeup on. You can choose not to. You control your presentation. You can control your clothing. You can control the energy with which you present yourself. You can control the way that you speak. You can get better at it. You can change the words that you use. You can stop using certain words, start using other words. You can change your skill level. You can work on your game and change your skill level at things, which will make people look at you a certain way. But there are certain things about your presentation which you do not control, such as your age, your skin tone, your culture, your prejudices, and your past experience, and not yours, but the prejudices and past experiences of the people whom you come across. For example, if you are a black male, you've never met Susie Q, who you're about to meet tomorrow, but she has dealt with some black males in the past and didn't have good experiences with them. And because of that, she's going to bring some certain prejudices into her interaction with you, even though you have never met her before and you haven't done anything to her. But because of her bad past experiences, that's going to affect her conversation with you. And you're going to feel it as soon as she lays eyes on you, that she's going to think of what she's experienced in the past from someone who looks like you, even though it wasn't you. You have no control over that. And because of that, the rules of engagement between you and her are going to be a little bit different than what you expected, simply because she has some experiences that have nothing to do with you, but they have a lot to do with you because you're there right now. That's the way it works. This is life. And we can swap out whatever race, gender, religion, culture, age you are, and swap out whatever type of people that you're going to be dealing with. And all these things have an effect. I was at a car dealership not too long ago, and there was a whole bunch of middle-aged white guys working in the car dealership, but there was one young-ish black guy working there. He's probably younger than me, probably in his early 30s. He was a black guy, maybe a Haitian guy, but he saw me. And we started having a conversation, and the conversation went for a pretty long time. Eventually he loosened up and he started using some language that he probably wouldn't use with somebody who didn't look like me, and started telling me all these different things that he could do for me and certain hookups that he could create and things like that. And the only reason he had that conversation with me is because I look like him. He couldn't have had that conversation with anybody who did not look like me the way he was talking. And if I had talked to one of these middle-aged white guys who was working there, they wouldn't have been using the language that he was using talking to me. Guaranteed. They probably aren't even aware of the language that he was using. Why? Because the rules are different for different people based on different situations and different circumstances, based on the different backgrounds of the people that you come across. All of these things that I just talked about: presentation, clothing, energy, speaking style, skill level, your age, your skin tone, your culture, the prejudices and past experiences of other people, all of these combine to form this mixture. It's like this big gumbo that gets put together. All right, this fruit cake that gets put together. There's hot dog. Any of you know anything about hot dogs, you know that it's not one piece of the animal that creates a hot dog. There's a whole bunch of stuff that gets thrown together to create what we call a hot dog. It forms this mixture, this concoction of responses and reactions that you get from other people, and responses and reactions which you create yourself that you don't always have full control over. And you must accept these responses and reactions that come from other people as part of life. For example, I was reading a book by the autobiography of Andre Agassi, who's a legendary tennis player. The book is called Open, and I'm not even into tennis, but I read this book. It was a pretty good book. Even though I'm not into tennis like that, he did a good explanation of letting people understand tennis, even if you don't play tennis, which is something that I appreciate. And he told the story of how he was driving his car. He had bought this luxury sports car, and he would open the engine up and just gun the engine, go as fast as he could on open road. And one day he was driving really fast and really recklessly on some road, gets pulled over by a police officer going, dangerously over the speed limit. And he had done this more than one time. He has some traffic tickets against him already. So the cop puts him in the cop car. He actually has to go to court right there on the spot because he already had some infractions against him. He has to see the judge. Well, the cop radioed and told that he had Agassi and this guy has these tickets and this ticket and this ticket. And now I just pulled him over for doing this thing. The judge hears all this and the judge orders Agassi to be brought to court right there on the spot. Had to leave his car right there on the road. Or Agassi has somebody with him. So they said, your friend can drive the car, can follow us, but you have to go to court right now. You got to go to the jailhouse right now. Agassi gets to the jailhouse. The judge is there and he gets brought in front of the judge and the judge is reading all his infractions and his list, his rap sheet, right? Of all the things that he had done with just traffic citations. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but it was a lot of them. And eventually the judge says to him, look, I just want you to sign some autographs for my kids. And Agassi was shocked. He's telling the story that he was shocked that the judge asked him just for autographs for his kids. He's like, wait, you're not going to take me, you're not sending me to jail. You're not making me have to come to trial. I don't have to pay off all these fines. And the judge says, oh, no. You don't have to do any of that. I just want you to sign some autographs for my kids. And I want you to play well in that tournament because I know you got one coming up this weekend. And why am I telling you that? Am I telling you that because you need to become a famous tennis player and so that you can get away with traffic tickets? No, I'm telling you that to emphasize this point. That because Andre Agassi was a famous tennis player and because he was known to this particular judge, now listen, there may be judges out there who know nothing about tennis. Because this judge knew him, he got away with that. The rules are different for him. Now maybe you're not famous. Maybe you got pulled over for going 10 miles over the speed limit and ended up costing you $300. While Andre Agassi, the rich guy, he was going 100 miles over the speed limit and it cost him absolutely nothing, just a couple of autographs, and he got sent on his way. You may be thinking this is unfair. You may be thinking, man, that's messed up. A famous person gets away with it, and me being a not famous person, I had to go through all of this shit with the exact same type of situation. Now, mine wasn't even as bad as his. I'm here to let you know exactly. That's the way it works. The rules ain't the same for everybody. Now, sometimes the rules may work in your favor. You probably don't remember those as much as you remember the ones, or as specifically as you remember the times when the rules worked against you. That's just the way that our minds work as human beings. We're just wired to remember the times where things didn't work more than the times things did work. The rules are just different based on a whole concoction of things that another person, the other people that you deal with, they've gone through a whole bunch of stuff and they have their own wirings that have nothing to do with you. But as soon as they come across you, they're going to pull out of their mental file, out of their file cabinet, something that matches your profile or whatever they think is your profile. And they're going to respond to you in kind based on that, based on whatever they pull out of their profile. And depending on how objective or subjective or open or closed-minded that person is, that's how much of a chance you have of changing their mind. That's a deep one right there. See, there are some people out there who, if they find out that you're Jewish, they have certain ideas of Jewish people. And if they're a closed-minded person who has certain ideas of Jewish people, it doesn't matter what you say or what you do, how you present yourself, that they are not changing their minds about Jewish people no matter what you do to try to change that mindset that they have. And you can feel it viscerally how they feel about you, knowing that you are who you are. And again, you can swap out the religion for a race, for a color, for an age, for a gender, for a sexual orientation, all of those things. There are people out there who have certain mindsets about those type of people, so to speak. And they're not changing their mind no matter what you do because they're just a closed-minded individual and you cannot change that for them. There are other people, though, who have their own ideas, but they're a little bit more open-minded. So they're willing to give you a fresh slate or a fresher slate, a more clean slate than another closed-minded individual will be willing to give you based on their background, based on their experiences, and then looking at you and categorizing you based on what they have gone through in their own lives. These are all things that human beings, we all do this. Okay, so I want you to understand that you are not just the subject of this, you are also a culprit in this. You do this as well when you deal with other people. And you may be a more open-minded individual who says, okay, I've had such and such experiences with these types of people. Now here comes another one, but I'm open-minded to this person because they have nothing to do with it. Maybe you're objective enough to think that way. Yeah, you're probably not. I'm going to keep it real. You are probably not that objective, but maybe you are. All right, you decide for yourself. You tell me. Look at your own life. You tell me how open-minded you are to XYZ types of people based on your past experiences. How much do you generalize people based on how they look, where they're from, what they have, what they don't have, who they're with, what they do. You think on that for a minute. Point number 2. Today's topic is the rules are not the same for everyone. Now, I just explained to you why the rules change based on the person that you're dealing with and all this whole concoction of things that other people have gone through in their lives that have absolutely nothing to do with you, but will affect you on some level simply because you got to deal with people in life. It's just the way that life works. So if you want to be completely independent, have nothing to do with other people, you can live in a cabin out in the woods, but you'll probably go crazy because you don't have any social interaction. Remember that humans are social creatures. So you better learn to adjust to this and adjust it to your liking as necessary rather than fight it. Point number 2, wanting the rules to be the same for all, this presupposes a fallacy that everyone is the same. Everybody ain't the same. Therefore, this truth that the rules are not the same for everybody, this is exactly how it should be. All right, the rules being different for everyone, this is not a flaw of the human system. All right, if you thought that that's what I was explaining here today, then I'm giving you a flaw of the human system, that the rules aren't the same for everyone, that a famous person can get away with a crime, whereas a quote unquote nobody type of person is going to have to pay a whole bunch of money or do their time, or they got to go through all the BS paperwork to get through a certain situation. You thought I was explaining that to you to let you know that this is just one of the fucked up parts of being a human being. No, that's not right. That's not true. This is one of the benefits of being human. One of the benefits of humanity is that the rules are not the same for everyone simply because everyone ain't the same. Everybody is not the exact same. Everyone does not have the same skills. Everyone doesn't have the same abilities. And we don't want everyone to be exactly the same, because if everybody was the same, then this world would be pretty boring. Or you probably wouldn't have a need for this show right here if everything was the same, honestly. All men are created equal, as the saying goes, and men means humans, not just males. But by our decisions and actions, we do not remain equal. Let me say that statement again. All men are created equal, but via our decisions and our actions, we do not remain equal. When you have different skills, different resources, and different people, then you can, should, and will create different circumstances from what other people do. Isn't this true? I mean, I think that's true, right? When I walked on in college, my freshman year of college at Penn State Abington, I wanted to walk on to the basketball team, meaning I was not invited. Nobody knew my name. I did not have a scholarship. I was literally walking into the gym just to get known, and nobody knew who I was. I had a different set of skills from all the other players who were walking into the gym trying to get on the team. And my differentiation in skill set should have separated me from the other people who were walking in the gym. It did separate me, and it's the reason why I got on the basketball team, and a whole bunch of other people didn't. All right, that's the way it should be. All right, I didn't want equal opportunity to everybody else. I wanted to show my skill and separate myself from everybody else. I wanted a different set of rules for me than from all other people trying out for the team. All right, that's what I wanted, and that's exactly what I got. That's a good thing. When you have different resources from other people, then you're going to get different outcomes from other people. I was watching this documentary, and I'll get into that later in this point. When you know different people from who other people know, then you're going to get different situations from what other people get. Listen, I'll tell you many times in my career as a professional speaker. I mean, I don't spend the majority of my time hunting and doing speaking gigs, but that is part of my skill set. It's part of my offerings of how I get this whole work on your game philosophy out there. One of those ways is through this show. Another way is through doing professional speaking. But I would say more than half of the speaking gigs that I've done in my career to this point have been because I knew somebody who knew somebody. Now, what am I talking about there? Relationships. Knowing those people. Listen, my skill as a speaker was no different whether I knew person ABC or I didn't know person ABC. But because I knew person ABC, my skill as a speaker got pushed to the front of the line of all the other people who were not known, and then I got the opportunity that they didn't get. And there have been many times at the same time where I wanted to get a certain speaking gig and didn't get it because I didn't know anybody who knew somebody at that whatever event, conference, etc., etc. Again, this is not a flaw of the system. I'm not saying this to complain. I'm saying this just to let you know this is just the way it works in life. Sometimes when you have different skills, you should have different rules. When you have different resources from somebody, different things are going to apply to you from somebody else. And when you know people and other people don't know anyone, you're going to get the opportunity most of the time. And when you don't know anybody and somebody else knows somebody, they're going to get the opportunity and you're going to be on the outside looking in. That's the way that it works. You can create different circumstances when you are different from other people. And that's exactly the way that it should be. This is a benefit of the system. This is a feature of the system. This is not a flaw of the system. If you are losing the game, whatever game you happen to be in, if you're losing the game skill wise and resource wise, listen, you are listening to me because every single day I'm going to give you some tips and some tools to tell you how you can change the score of the game. Right? If you feel like skill wise you are deficient, or you feel resource wise you are deficient, or you feel strategy wise, maybe you have the skills, you have the resource, but you feel like your strategy is off, you come to a person such as myself so I can show you how, listen, this is the way you need to alter your strategy. This is the way you need to alter the way you're thinking. This is how you need to alter your skill set. You have the right things, but you're using them the wrong way. You got to change the score of the game. I'm not telling you that something's wrong with the game. All right, the game ain't changing. At least not in the way that just everything's just going to become perfect for you. It'll change in other ways. It'll change in ways that maybe make it less easy for you. You got to adjust along with it. That's where people like me come in. That is your opportunity, your ability to change the score once you see that the game's not working in your favor. But understanding that the game ain't the same for everybody. All right, you got to make the game work for you the way that it works. Now, I was watching this documentary. This is what I was about to touch on a moment ago. Documentary on Netflix. It's called the Kalief Browder story. I don't know how many of you know about this story of Kalief Browder. He was a young man, I believe 16 years old, lived in New York. I believe it was the Bronx. I may be incorrect about which borough, but he lived in New York, young black man, 16 years old. He got arrested on a robbery charge. Now, it was a BS robbery charge simply because some Mexican guy had gotten robbed late at night one night. And about a week or two later, this same guy was in the same area in which he had gotten robbed, and he saw some young black kids because he got robbed by some young black guy, allegedly. He saw some young black kids 2 weeks later, and then he called the cops and said, hey, these are the guys who robbed me, or I think they're the guys who robbed me. But the problem was he never saw the faces of the people who robbed him, and then he just saw some young black people who kind of sort of fit the description, so he called the cops. The cops come and grab up these people, and the way Kalief Browder explained it is the way the cops did things then is that they would grab the suspects, and they would show them to the victim who's sitting in the cop car, and the victim would need to identify who was the person who did it. But the way the cops would ask, they would ask a very suggestive question. They would say something like, these are the guys, right? And a leading type of question to get you to say yes, just so they could get the statistic of the arrest, and they could check off and say, hey, we arrested somebody for this open case, this open crime that has been submitted to our system, because this is part of their statistics. This is part of their scoreboard and the policing. And you watch the TV show The Wire, you know that this is the way that it works. So Kalief Browder ends up getting arrested on this thing, but he knows that he didn't commit the robbery. He also knows there's no proof that this robbery happened. It's not on camera. The guy couldn't really positively identify him. So Kalief Browder is like, okay, they arresting me, but I'm going to get off. This charge is going to get thrown out. There's no way they can prove that I committed any type of armed robbery. But here's the problem. Kalief Browder goes to jail, and because it's an armed robbery, he has a certain bond. Any of you don't know what that is. That's the amount of money that you can pay to get yourself out of incarceration while awaiting trial on a charge. So he was charged with armed robbery. I believe it was armed robbery he was charged with. And he had to pay a certain amount of bond to get out of jail. And then eventually you get your court date. And any of you who doesn't know anything about the criminal justice system, the time between when you get arrested and the time you actually go to trial for a charge, it could be months. It could be a year between the arrest and the actual trial date. Here's the thing, though, about the criminal justice system. If a person is broke and does not have the money to actually bond themselves out of jail, then you must remain incarcerated until your trial date. And that trial date could be months or a year after you got arrested. So you're a person who was arrested. You believe you are innocent. You did not commit the crime, but you don't have the money to get yourself out of jail. That means you must sit in jail. You can't just walk around and live your life as a free person until the trial. You must stay in jail until the trial actually happens, at which point maybe you'll beat the case and you'll get out of jail and be a free person again. But if you cannot afford to be free, you got to stay in jail simply because somebody pointed their finger at you and said you committed a crime and you couldn't afford to be free until you get that court date. So this is the difference between, and this is what ended up happening with Kalief Browder, the rest of the story. Because he got jailed on his charge, it was $900. His mother was saying $900 was the amount of money that someone, either he or someone in his family, would need to produce to bond him out of jail. And then whenever the court date happened, it happened and it was fine. He could just go on living his life. Only inconvenience he would have was the one day he had got arrested and the one day he would have to go to court. He would beat the case. It would be 2 whole days, arrest day, trial day, the whole thing's over. But because he didn't have $900 to bond himself out of jail, there's a little bit more to the story. You can go watch the documentary if you wish. Because he didn't have the $900 to bond himself out, he just had to stay in jail. He ended up in Rikers Island, which is one of the worst condition and worst system prisons in all of the United States, or jails in all of the United States. He ended up in Rikers Island for 3 years. 16 years old. In jail for 3 years on a crime that he did not commit. Well, at least, again, we'll just leave allegedly. He said that he did not commit this alleged crime. 3 years he ended up in jail, not because he was a criminal, not because he had been convicted, not because he had done anything wrong necessarily. All he had done was been eyeballed and pointed at, fingered by a victim who allegedly was robbed and said that he looked like the guy who had done it. That's all Kalief Browder was guilty of. That's the only thing he had done wrong. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. The other thing he did wrong was that he didn't have $900, or nobody in his family had $900 to get him out of jail. 3 years in prison, waiting for trial. He ended up committing suicide after he got out of jail. Now, while he was in jail, again, you can watch the documentary to see all the things that happened. He had spent a lot of time in solitary confinement. He had gotten into a lot of fights. He had been attacked, not only by other inmates, but also by guards in the jail. Is a ridiculously crazy story. I suggest you go watch it yourself. If you never heard of Kalief Browder, if you have heard of him and you didn't watch that documentary, I heard of him years ago, but I had never watched the documentary. I watched the whole series in one sitting one day. It's about 6 parts. They're all about maybe 45 minutes per show on Netflix. This guy ended up taking his own life after he got out of jail, after he sat in Rikers Island for 3 years. And the only reason he stayed in Rikers Island for 3 years because he didn't have a couple $100s to his name to get out of jail. Had he had that money, all he would have did was, again, get arrested one day, go to trial another day. The whole thing would have been over. This is the way the American justice system is set up. The justice system in the United States, for those of you who don't know, I know we got some lawyers probably listening to this show. It is not so much about your innocence or guilt as it is if you have the resources to defend yourself. Any of you who knows a lawyer, ask them that question. Ask them if what I just said is accurate. I guarantee you they'll all tell you that it is. Now, maybe they may not want to admit it, but it's the truth. If you know someone who works on the government side, whether they're like a state's attorney or a prosecutor or a judge, they may be reluctant to admit this. If you know anyone who works on the private sector, such as they are a private lawyer who you can just call and hire, I guarantee you 100% they'll agree to this. They'll tell you straight up, and they'll probably tell you a whole bunch of other things too that you weren't even thinking that you would hear. They'll tell you. But let me tell you what it is again, so you can take it to them. You got the exact quote. In the American justice system, it is not so much about your innocence or guilt as it is if you have the resources to defend yourself, or if you have the resources to never need to defend yourself. For example, a running joke in American popular culture is about O.J. Simpson, right? When people bring up O.J. Simpson, a lot of people say people think O.J. did it. Everybody has some type of opinion about O.J. Simpson. It's a very surreal thing just looking at the guy, that the only thing that people think about when they talk about him now is this double murder, this double homicide that he went to trial for, that he was ultimately found not guilty of. And it's a microcosm, a macro microcosm of the American criminal justice system. Had O.J. Simpson not had the money to defend himself, he probably would have went to jail for life. But because he had the money to defend himself, and again, this is not a statement on his innocence or guilt. I'm saying because he had the money, he could afford to defend himself. He did, and he got off. And had he not had the money, had he been a Kalief Browder, we probably wouldn't have heard too much about this story. He just would have went to jail and it would have been over. And people would have forgot about it. He'd still be in jail, in prison right now. Why am I bringing all this up? Because I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm saying that this is what is. In some areas of life, it is not about right or wrong. It is not damn sure ain't about equal. It is damn sure not about fairness. And it damn sure ain't about equality. It's about, do you have the connections? Do you have the skills? Do you have the resources to make the game work in your favor? Because if you don't, the game is going to use you, is going to chew you up and spit you out, and it's going to work against you. Simply because you don't know the right people, you don't have the right abilities, and or you don't have the right resources. When you have those right things, you can make the game work for you. You can rig the game in your favor simply because of those things. And if you don't, the game's going to step all over you. I'm not telling you again that this is right or wrong. I'm just telling you this is what is. Therefore, knowing that it's what is, you need to make the proper adjustments to play the game. Point number 3. Today's topic. The rules are not the same for everyone. Understanding all of this that we talked about so far, here's what you actually want in life. I'm going to tell you the thing that you actually want. It is called an unfair advantage. You want an unfair advantage. All right. You do want there to be rules. All right. We don't want no rules at all, because then we have complete anarchy and it would be crazy. All right. People wouldn't be stopping at stoplights or stop signs if there was complete anarchy and no rules. You do want there to be rules, but you want to be in the places, you want to be in places in which the rules favor you rather than hinder you. That's all you want. Simple as that. Or you want to be in places in which you can alter the rules in such a way that they fit your needs. All right, that's all you want in life. That's all you need to ask for. All right, you can be a simple individual. Just be somewhere where the rules work for you, or have the ability to alter the rules to make them work for you. That's it. This is what powerful people do in life, ladies and gentlemen. Or if you're a powerful person, I'll just describe what you do. This is all they do. All right. Rewind for the last 1 minute so you can hear again. And I'm going to tell you again, this is what powerful people do in life. Do not rail against the rules that you don't like. All right. Don't go get picket signs and protest and complain and write 10-paragraph Facebook status updates complaining about rules that you don't like. All right. Because that may sometimes work, but most of the time it doesn't. Doesn't do anything but cost you energy. Okay, it may get you a round of applause from the other idiots in the peanut gallery, but it's not actually going to cause anything tangibly to happen. So don't waste your energy on it. What you need to do is, instead of railing against the rules that you don't like, either find or create the rules that you want. And you can swap out rules with the word circumstances. And I just told you another axiom about success in life. Don't rail against circumstances you don't like. Go find or create the circumstances you want. Don't rail against the rules that you don't like. Go find or create the rules that you want. This is a tried and true personal growth maxim. If you're tall, long, and have an athletic physique, the rules of sumo wrestling do not favor you. All right, you should probably try a sport like basketball. All right, so for me, the rules of sumo wrestling don't work for me. Why? Because I'm tall, I'm long, I have a thin build, I have an athletic physique. I'll probably get my ass kicked in sumo wrestling. I'm not built for that game. Those rules are not set up for somebody like me to win. So if I'm in sumo wrestling, the worst thing I can be doing is bitching about the rules of sumo wrestling. What I need to do is stop trying to sumo wrestle and go play basketball. Why? Because the rules are set up for somebody like me to win over there. Now, if you're short with a stocky physique and you don't really like running, the rules of basketball do not favor you. You probably shouldn't try playing. You're not going to be successful. You should probably try something like wrestling. Understand that rules are made to be broken, but sometimes the effort required to break rules is not worth the return on investment. If I wanted to, for example, if I tried really hard and put a whole lot of work in and a lot of time and a lot of effort, I can maybe eventually get the rules of sumo wrestling to work in my favor, and I could be a mediocre sumo wrestler. Maybe if I tried really hard and dedicated my whole life to it. But is it really worth the return on investment that I would get from being a mediocre sumo wrestler, all dedicating my whole life just to become mediocre at something? Is it really worth it? I don't think so. That's my decision though, but you can make a different decision if you want. It is better to find the mix Find a place that has the mix of a set of rules that work for you combined with some breakable rules that have a positive ROI. For example, in the basketball world, the rules generally state that a player coming from a Division III school, or a player who didn't play their senior year of college, or a player who doesn't really have any pro prospects, or a player who didn't start playing until the age of 14, the rules generally state those players usually don't make it in basketball. So I broke a few of those rules to make it, but I also had some rules working for me. So it was a mix. So I didn't try to break every rule. I wasn't a 5'5" guy with no athleticism who couldn't jump and doesn't like running and didn't play till 14 and went to a D3 school and didn't play the senior year. And I didn't try to break all the rules at the same time. I would probably lose that game. I had several rules working for me, and I had a few rules working against me, and that combination made magic and it became a great story. All right, you got to find where that mix is. Because if you're somewhere where all the rules are working directly in your favor, then you're not going to have to go up against anything. Your story's not really that interesting because everything just worked in your favor. The whole world just laid down at your feet and everything worked. And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that kind of, even fairy tales have some type of climactic action. You got to have something you got to go against. You got to go up against something to achieve something. Otherwise, we don't want to hear the story. You understand? So find that mix where you have to break some rules, but there are also some rules working for you. And if you're in a place where none of the rules are working in your favor, or you're in the wrong place, get the hell out of there and get out of there quick. Let's recap today's topic, which is the rules are not the same for everyone. Somebody came to me and said something. I don't even remember what they were talking about, but they were like, well, this black guy said this, but if a white person had said the same thing the black guy said, that white person would be labeled a racist. I said, you know what? You're 100% right. But the problem is you're assuming that all the rules are the same for everybody. They're not. So you need to understand. Point number one, fairness ended in kindergarten. I don't know if any of you have kids who are kindergarten age, or any of you remember your kindergarten graduation. If they even do kindergarten graduations, they need to start hiring speakers for kindergarten graduations. I am available, and I will let the kindergartners know that all fairness and equality and everybody being the same is over. As of today, it is over. In the real world that you're about to enter into in first grade, all that fairness shit is over. Okay? Everything is based on biases. Some biases which you control and some you do not. You control your presentation, your clothing, your energy, your speaking style, your skill level. You don't control your age, your skin tone, your culture. You don't control other people's prejudices and past experiences because everybody has it. All of these combine to form a concoction of responses that you do not fully control. Accept it as part of life. Point number two, wanting the rules to be the same for everybody presupposes that everybody is the same. We ain't the same. All men are created equal, but by our decisions, our actions, and our experiences, we do not remain equal. When you have different skills, different resources, and you know different people, you can, should, and will create different circumstances from other people. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. If you are losing the game, that means you're listening to something like this, or you read books, or you go to conferences, or you take coaching, or you take an online course to learn how to change the score. That is your opportunity in life. Kalief Browder is a 16-year-old kid who was in jail for 3 years on a crime that he had not even been convicted of. Why? Because he didn't have $900 to bail himself out of jail, ended up committing suicide. The rules worked against him. If he had a couple $100 to his name to bond himself out, he'd probably still be alive to this very day and wouldn't even have that arrest or that charge on his record because he would have got off at trial. He did get off at trial, rather. They dismissed the case. I didn't even tell you that part. The case got dismissed because the accuser didn't even show up to court because they knew they didn't have any real evidence that they could convict Kalief Browder on this charge. They ended up throwing the case out. The judge threw the case out of court. Whole time this guy was in jail, 3 whole years, 16 to 19. Imagine you having a kid, 16 years old, and they're in jail for 3 years simply because you were too broke to bail him out. And they didn't even get convicted of anything. The rules worked against him. In the American criminal justice system, the rule is if you have money, you can defend yourself and you'll probably not get as harsh or not any charge at all or any type of punishment at all as compared to a broke person. All right, you looking, I don't know if anyone's done this study. If you read Michelle Alexander's book called The New Jim Crow, she talks about this in detail. I read it several years ago. I don't remember if she did these statistics. The majority of people who end up in jail, on short-term jail stints or end up keep going back to jail over and over and over again. You know what the common thing amongst all of them is? A lot of people will say, well, the common theme amongst people who end up incarcerated is that they're criminals. No, that's not the common theme. The common theme amongst people who end up incarcerated is that they're broke. They don't have any money. They can't afford a lawyer. They can't afford to defend themselves, and they can't afford to bond or bail out of jail. Therefore, they end up in jail all the time. If you have money, you can get yourself out of these situations. If you're broke, the American criminal justice system uses you over and over and over again to do what they want with you. These are the way the rules are set up. I'm not saying that this is right. I'm not saying that this is wrong. I'm saying this is what is. You got to understand what the rules are in any game that you're playing, or the game will play you. That's just the way that it works. Point number 3, understanding all of this, here's what you actually want. You want an unfair advantage. You need to place yourself where there are rules, but rules in which they favor you rather than hinder you, or where you can alter the rules to fit your needs, or where the rules just don't apply to you at all. That's what powerful people do. Powerful people find these places. Powerful people do not rail against the rules that they don't like. All right? Powerful people don't walk around with picket signs protesting and sitting cross-legged in some park occupying Wall Street. All right, that's what people with no power do. All right, people who have power go find the places where the rules are working for them. They don't complain about the fact the rules are not working for them. It's just what it is. If you're tall and long and have an athletic physique, don't be a sumo wrestler, play basketball. If you're short, stocky, and don't like running, don't play basketball, try wrestling. Rules are made to be broken, but sometimes the effort required to break a rule is not worth its return on investment. So that doesn't mean go break every rule. All right, because sometimes what you end up getting for doing all that rule breaking ain't worth it in the end. It's better to find somewhere where there's a mix of a set of rules that do work for you combined with some breakable rules that have a positive ROI. Apply all this. Work on your game. Dre all day.
Hey, this is Dre all day. If you enjoy this mental game stuff that I talk about on video every day, then I put together a simple master class that will give you one key tip for developing what I call the bulletproof mindset. All you need to do is go to workonmygame.com/bulletproof. Is the link right here, and it's down below in the video descriptions. Just click on it, take you right to the page. I'm going to give you that video. It's about 20 minutes long. This masterclass I put together. One key tip for developing a bulletproof mindset. And when you get that special masterclass free video, I'm also going to make you a special offer to get the full bulletproof mindset experience. So just go to that link that you see right here, and I'm going to show you how to develop that bulletproof mindset right now. So if you like this video that you just watched, I'm going to show you how to take it to the highest possible level. You ready for that? Let's do it.